Today we can talk about The Oath. This is made in 2023. I say the year the movie was made because The Oath seems to be a popular title with movies and TV shows. So if you're going to look this up on Amazon Prime, is where you can find it. 2023 is the year you want to look at. So let's get into this. The Oath is a film inspired by the Book of Mormon. The story takes place near the end of the book and follows a guy named Moroni. This is basically after the Christian civilization over here in the Americas has been destroyed. Moroni is one of the last survivors. He's hiding from those who don't believe in Christ, and they're out to destroy his people. And he's trying to preserve the records of his people so that in the future the world can know about their civilization. The Oath is an interesting movie because you can tell there was ambition behind it, but unfortunately sometimes I think it tries too hard. One of the things I noticed is that the cinematography, there are moments where the filmmakers seem determined to make every shot artistic. Near the beginning, Moroni is surrounded by his enemies. The camera zooms in on his plate of armor to show the emblem, and then it zooms out, and then it kind of goes behind him and zooms in on his nice silver hair for some reason. I don't know why. But, is this trying to be, like I said, a little too artistic at times? I appreciate that they were trying to do something visually creative instead of simply pointing the camera at the actors. But sometimes the cinematography calls so much attention to itself that it's distracting. And also the acting is a little uneven in this movie, particularly towards the beginning. There are scenes where the two characters are just standing across from each other, and it really feels like they're just reading their lines. But once the characters get movement on the screen and start doing stuff, their delivery of the dialogue becomes more natural and becomes better in those instances of the movie. Another thing that bother me about this movie is how they handle language. Early on, it can actually be pretty jarring. You have characters speaking English and then suddenly speaking a fictional language created for the movie. And I'm not talking about something like Spanglish, where somebody's speaking Spanish but then throw in English words during the sentence because they don't know the word in Spanish. It's literally like sometimes a character is speaking one language while the other one answers in English, and then later they'll switch back and forth speaking that way. Eventually, I found myself thinking, just pick a language. And if you want the characters to speak their native language, it's all right to use subtitles. Just pick one, and that's kind of the problem with the first half an hour of this movie. Now, anyone who is familiar with the Book of Mormon will immediately notice that the movie takes some liberties with this story. In the Book of Mormon, Moroni is essentially alone during this period. The movie gives him a Limonite woman as a companion. The two eventually marry. She becomes pregnant, and ultimately she is killed. Her purpose of the story seems pretty clear. She's there to demonstrate one of the movie's religious messages, that the gospel isn't limited to one particular people. Anyone can accept Christ and change their life. So while that relationship isn't something you'll find in the Book of Mormon account, I understand why the filmmakers added it. Movie needs characters for Moroni to interact with, and her conversion allows the film to explore the religious themes through one character. But this brings me to what I think is probably the biggest limitation of The Oath, and that's the budget. This is a very small movie. There aren't many major characters, and the story stays relatively contained. I don't necessarily consider that a criticism. Filmmakers have to make the movie that they can afford to make. But it's also a little unfortunate because I think there's a much bigger and potential more interesting movie behind this story. If we're going to tell the story of Moroni, I would love to see the fall of the Nephite civilization, show us what the society had become, show us Moroni watching his entire civilization collapse until eventually he's the one left carrying its history. I also think it's an incredible historical epic buried somewhere in that story. Unfortunately, you need a pretty substantial budget to make it work. You need cities, armies, hundreds of extras, battles, costumes, sets, and probably quite a bit of visual effects works. The Oath obviously didn't have those resources, so instead the filmmakers chose a smaller story that could realistically be made with the money they had. And there's actually an advantage to that limitation. They shot extensively on real locations. You don't spend the entire movie looking at actors standing in front of obvious green screens. The landscapes are actually there, and that gives the movie a physical reality to that larger but CGI heavy production might not have. That's one of the reasons I appreciate it, but it is also why The Oath leaves me with somewhat mixed feelings. There are things there that don't work. The acting is kind of stiff. The language choices are distracting. And sometimes the cinematography tries too hard to be artistic. That ends up pulling me out of the movie instead. I can see why the filmmakers were trying to accomplish. They took a story from a closing chapters of the Book of Mormon and attempted to turn into a historical adventure from the resources available to them. And I think that was worthwhile. Because whether you're approaching the Book of Mormon from a religious perspective or simply looking at it as a collective of stories, there are a lot of potential compelling stories in there that could work extremely well on the screen. You got political struggles, wars, families, portrayal, faith, and a rise and fall of a civilization. The Oath isn't the great Book of Mormon epic I would someday like to see, but it's an interesting attempt it's an interesting story that they're trying to put in on the screen. Overall, I would say this movie is pretty bad at times, but it's okay. It's worth watching. Give it a try. If you can make it past the first 20 or 30 minutes, you can make it through the rest of the movie because it seems to get a little better after that. But it does have a rough beginning to it. Overall, that's what I think of The Oath. Have you seen this movie? What do you think of it? Do you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments below. Have a great day.